people are going to be troubled by it.
It's really hard. I mean, a lot of things in the season that we shot, they were really hard.
Yeah.
Some of the scenes were really hard.
Yeah.
And there's already information about what we're about to start shooting in the second season that, I had to have a little cry about already. So it's quite something. This show can be quite intense.
Charlie, how did you feel when you found out Foggy was going to die?
Oh, we can go there?
Yeah, we can go there now.
Oh my
just
God,
the first
it's so
two.
Scary to mention.
Oh my God, when you said that, my heart just dropped. Like, right.
It's such a big deal, by the way. Like, we need to say that that's gonna be a big deal.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's a huge.
When did you find out?
Not till I saw it, which was 2 days ago.
What did you feel?
I mean, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great scene, a great sequence, but I was also bummed out. I mean, because I assumed that the previous incarnation of the show wasn't really bringing those guys back, and then we all heard they were coming back, and now he's gone.
Yeah, we felt the same exact way.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
On a personal level, it's devastating.
It's devastating.
Not just because of my friendship with Elden, his brilliance as Foggy, the fact that it has been argued that that Foggy Nelson is the heartbeat of the MCU. I mean, like, it's devastating. It's also, devastating from the show's perspective, because there is so much that relationship, that dynamic offers. And there's so many more stories to tell. So it's really sad, genuinely sad.
Because unfortunately, there's a lot of stories that it does offer, his death does offer to us.
Right. Yeah, but the truth is, it's been 6 years since we made the show. We're coming in with an idea, and we wanted to do. We have to have a reason for remaking the show. You've got to be bold. You've got to be brave and bold. And we had this great idea, or the writers had this great idea about Matt really swearing off the suit entirely, which is kind of the reverse of the last season we had over on Netflix. But in order to do that, there's got to be a real reason. It can't just be anything. It has to be a bombshell. Yeah. And when the idea was presented to me back in 2022 or 3. Late 2022, whenever it was, early 2023, you can't help but deny it's brave, And I think it's people are going to be troubled by it, but it's a great catalyst. Yeah. So
it's really hard. I mean, a lot of things in the season that we shot, they were really hard. Yeah. Some of the scenes were really hard. Yeah. You know that we've known these people for a long time. And so when we're doing scenes with them that are emotional scenes, I mean, like, Charlie's an amazing actor. We're feeling it. We feel real emotions when we're doing these scenes, Like when I did the marriage counseling scenes with Ayelet, I was going through a similar experience in my life at the time, and she's such a sister to me. We're both cancers. We have so much in common. Our birthdays are like right around the corner from each other. Our personalities are so similar. It's crazy. We like the same jokes. We think the same awful things. It's really quite something how feminine I really am, actually. And I love it. And so doing some of those scenes with her, those are tears. Those are real tears, Yeah. And there's again, there's already information about what we're about to start shooting in the second season that, I had to have a little cry about already. So it's quite something. This show can be quite intense as an actor.
You're keeping tabs on me.
No, I'm not. I'm just... call it professional curiosity.
So Fisk's return to New York. He's seems outwardly to be a changed man.
He tries desperately to explain himself to Ayelet when he returns.
And I sort of bought his speech to a degree as a viewer. I mean,
that's good.
I'm not sure she did, though.
No, she needs more detail, and she gets it. When you have trusted somebody, right, in a relationship for a long time, like our characters have. I've also known Ayelet for a long time, so we trust each other as people too. the thing is that you have to dive deep with this stuff. You really have to dive deep. And there's a lot of emotional things that are either going to be understood or they're not. But in Echo, you know, believe it or not, you know, a teenager reached into his brain like my teenager does every day at home and messed my head up. That's what she did. Yeah. It didn't work, but she did. And I didn't know, I had no idea what Echo did to me. She did something to me. She tried something. I felt it. I was there. She brought us into my past in a room where just before I killed my father. And she wanted me to let it go. And she tried to pull that misery out of me, and she couldn't. But it screwed his head up, you know? And so he was, and you know, it's all kind of very kind of whoo stuff, but it's like, you know, we play this stuff for real when we play it. And I took it very seriously. And so I always felt that when he got back to Ayala, back to Vanessa, my wife, and when Fisk got back to her, that he was going to have to explain himself. So I fought for that. And Dario wrote a great speech. We had to connect it in some way and explain things in some way.
It also seems as though New York City has changed in this show in terms of how the people are responding to the idea of superhumans or superheroes. What is Fisk tapping into there? Mm-hmm. Because like they don't seem to necessarily love. He's anti-vigilante. The people voted for him. What's going on there?
Well, yeah, it's like surprise, surprise. Nobody knows who to trust anymore. I think that he's a guy that will get out of his limousine and fix a pothole that would have taken 6 months to fix, and he wants it fixed that day. So it gets done. And I think that's what they like about him, stuff like that. I think that, like most good people in the world, they have no idea what badness is, so they find it hard to recognize. Because people just want to live their lives. And any kind of sense of reprieve that they get, that's what they'll go towards, whoever's giving them that reprieve. Because they just don't understand badness as well as others. And I think that that's what's going on.
How much did you guys talk about on set about any possible real-world parallels between the mayor's run and what the world we live in? Obviously, you guys shot a while ago, but was this a discussion at all?
Actually, nothing directly from current events, but there's one really interesting thing that you reminded me of just now. Remember the first day we ever shot with you was the mayor debate with you against the two other sort of establishment politicians. And Aaron and I are at monitor watching you, and you'll cut, and I said, yeah, it's good to move on. And Aaron and I are just both looking at each other, and we're like, I totally get why people would vote for him, for Fisk, because he's just honest, and there's no theatrics. The other two had these political theatrics, and he was just up there being himself. Yeah. And there was something like, there was something really magnetic about it.
That wasn't my idea, though. That was your guys' idea. Right? Or did we have the mutual idea? I don't remember. Anyway, I think they directed me to do that.
But it was genuinely fascinating.
And it was really worked.
Because he if you just pressed play at that exact moment, you would see a guy with a monstrous sounding voice, you know, a big scar over his eye, you know, looking just like a titan, bigger, physically larger than everybody else. And like on its surface, it would be like bad guy, you know, like easy. And then you just start listening, and suddenly you're just like, there's something underneath here, you know? And it's very, very similar here with Charlie, is like, there's so much depth. Here's a great example is, you know, an actor's eyes are their tools, you know, in a big way. It's one of the major tools. And you perform half of your lines with this covered up, right? And you're not even allowed to make eye contact with your scene partner and all of that. And we were wondering how on earth we present that in a way that is as empathetic as it felt like you feel who Matt Murdock is in the same way you feel it in the Daredevil show. We talked a little bit about this, about like, what do we do? You know, how do we shoot you and your point of view and present all of it? And you realize it's actually really effortless because it's all of your being. You know, it's as simple as like how we can point the camera at your hand and it tells you kind of what you're thinking in that moment. It's the same thing. It's like even though like by the nature of this being a show in which you put on a mask and you cover half your face, we get it all. We get it all. Even like huge moments by the end of the thing, like these beautiful big moments in the final episode.
Yeah.
You have a mask on and it doesn't seem to matter. You don't even think about it.
Yeah. No, it's crazy,
really
right? I know. I agree. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's really good.
Vincent,
by the way.
Likewise.
You'll never. This is so funny to say. The amount of times we've advocated for your hand in an edit.
Oh yeah.
It's so weird. It's like it's all right there. Like he's
Yeah.
and it's not like
I love that
placement
you
close
put
up,
that
like,
in
it's just-
the.
You do cut
I
to it,
saw
right?
him.
Yeah. Oh, all
Well,
the
in
time.
the diner scene, I noticed in the trailer that they cut to my hand at the end.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you told me you were doing, but I had no idea in the end. But it was cool. It was very cool.
Kill? Never. I wonder if your darker half would agree.
What was it like shooting that big oneer that is part of the Foggy scene?
Yeah.
Did you guys feel like you had to top? Daredevil's known for its oneers, right? Like,
So we were talking about like how do we reach the bar that it's set for acting, for drama, for tragedy of that original show. From a technical standpoint, it's not just that oneer, which you watch the oneers in that original show, and it's like, yeah, we're filmmakers, we like oneers, we've done them, but it's intimidating to even watch, to figure out how they did it. It's scary, there's pressure to get it right. And actually, I mean, I want to talk about the train tracks of fate.
Oh yeah. I mean, thank God we had the steadying hand of Phil Silvera, our action director, second unit director, who's choreographed the whole thing. And we decided on this really rigid camera language for it. Because what we've noticed that the most popular kind of oneer is, you put a camera on the person's shoulder and you just chase them around, which is exciting to all filmmakers, basically. But we decided in this one, what we wanted to do was, if this is a show about a man who believes that he has lost his chance at redemption, lost the blessings of his faith, then our camera has this omniscience as well. It's kind of like it's watching. And so we decided to kind of nail our camera down and tell our camera that it already knows how this goes. It knows that Foggy dies. It knows that he crosses a line and tries to kill someone on a roof, And the camera is this dispassionate entity that is just slowly moving on the train, what we call the train tracks of fate, moving with the action, but not following it in a frenetic way. And you just kind of get this sense, this tightness in your stomach of doom. You just know it's going to go terribly wrong, and it's exciting. But there's this other thing too. There's this other layer of something's terribly wrong here.
Right.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah,
So cool, yeah.
That is so cool to hear you describe it that way.
Yeah. we hope it's effective in that way, but that's the
I think
theory,
it is.
I think it is, yeah. I would never have been able to use that language to describe it that way.
But we will now. We'll be able to.
Cut to the next
I've always
universe.
felt
Train
like-
tracks of fate.
I was just thinking.
the way I've always described it.
It's funny you should mention that. I was just thinking that the way
That's so cool.
we had
you,
this,
man. Yeah.
it was sort of like a train track of faith. What was it?
Fate.
I can send you the transcript.
But what makes me think of is that
Change a little bit.
What it makes me think of is that the placement of that scene in our series. That is exactly the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Because if it's the end of a season, then there's an argument to have it be more green grass, frenetic, following the action kind of on a whim, as it were, to tell the story that no one knows what's going to happen. But because it happened so early on in our show, and you just by the placement of it, you are telling the story of a doom. You are telling the story of there's a premonition here. There's a foregone conclusion to this, and if you look inside yourself, you know what it is. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
I don't know if you guys know this, but so that was obvious. You do know that was our first time working with Phil Silvera, who you guys had worked with on the original Netflix show.
He's a godsend.
But whenever we ask Phil about a single punch or a movement of anything physical with either one of you guys, he always just immediately has this rationale behind it, justification that is based off of hundreds of conversations with you guys and combining that with his own love for the comic books you grew up writing. It's just fascinating to interact with him.
And also has no ego about it.
Yeah.
Too. And it's I'll work that for you.
Yeah.
You know?
On set, Phil is a pleasure to work for. our stunt coordinator, because he's more than just a coordinator. He's I guess we could call him a filmmaker too.
Well, he's the second. Oh, for sure. He's our action director, second unit.
For sure. And, he's so, on a set, he's a guy like that he's so strict with his coordinating when it's being practiced. But when we get on a set, he's open to changes if it has to be. Like I remember the scene in the basement, we ran out of time, so we had to clip the ending and make it different. So we had to figure out an ending fairly quickly. And on like one of the takes, you guys were there for that, right? Where I screamed mine?
We saw the dailies of that like the next day.
Okay.
And we were like, what is he doing? We were blown away.
Yeah, well, that wasn't just me. It was Phil. Phil goes to me, he goes, so instead of doing all this, we had 3 other moves I was supposed to do, to take this guy from a table to a wall. And we had to cut out everything in between. So I just had to, we made him fall off the table. I picked him up and put him against this wall. And there was only really one more punch. And Phil was like, we have to do something else. And I'm like, well, like what? He goes, well, there has to be another beat somewhere. Should we plan another kick, something real? Or I go, well, let's just do another one and see what came out. And then I did this thing. Was it before I punched him or after I punched him?
I remember.
I think it was.
It felt like it was the coup de grace.
Yeah, it was like the end. I held him against the wall and I just screamed this thing. And it just worked perfectly. And if it hadn't been for Phil's openness, he didn't panic. He had this whole thing that he'd been practicing for months and months, but yet he changed on it. That's the kind of people you need working for you.
Mm-hmm. And also, like what people don't necessarily realize with the stunt sequence is if you're shooting a scene of dialogue and 2 people are talking, those words will work from anywhere. You can put the camera anywhere, and that's up to the discretion of the director. When you're doing an action sequence, Phil is doing a previs. He's writing this. He's choreographing this scene over the weeks leading up to the scene. But if one of the lines of dialogue, quote unquote, is a punch, that might work from the camera angle that he's using in the previs. But if we get there on the day and the directors want the camera to be over here, that can't work as a punch anymore. That now has to be an elbow or a kick because the angle of the camera might suggest that we can't sell it that way. Right. So you really have to be adaptable, and as do the directors have to. There has to be a conversation and a collaboration in order to make those the sequences work. Because also fight sequences take a lot of time. One page of you can do 14 pages of dialogue in a day. You can probably do maybe 1.5 pages of action in a day. So time is really valuable. So you've got to be able to work and adapt quickly.
What's nice is that even during this conversation, we're talking a lot about collaboration, and how, it's such a different place to live when you're dealing with a bunch of collaborators. It's such a wonderful place and a very creative place to live. One of the things that I remember, can I just tell a really quick story?
Yeah, and then we're going to have to wrap it.
Oh, yeah?
I don't want to.
Yeah,
I'm being told.
Well, if I say we don't have to, we don't have to.
All right.
So I dare somebody to stop me.
The Kingpin here.
Yeah, you can stop me later always, but that's the business we're in. So I remember I did this film called The Player with Robert Altman, and Tim and I had a fight scene to do in a parking lot, and he was supposed to die, and we weren't supposed to be sure whether I purposely killed him or it was an accident caused by some violence that happened. So we get into this fight. I have to knock him into this alleyway, and Altman kept saying, well, that's not enough. It's too, like, if he dies and doesn't get up, then you obviously killed him because you pushed him over a railing. And we didn't know how to shoot the ending, and I saw on the other side of the alley where we weren't shooting was this little puddle of water that had no drain. It just was there all the time. And I thought, Bob, I said, people can drown in this much water. I go, what if he goes over the wall and he falls face down and Tim gets on top of me and he starts holding me and did he drown in this much water or was it an accident? Did he drown him purposely in that much water or did he accidentally die in that much water? And the guys, Bob loved the idea. He brought in the special effects. They ran an air tube under the cement up into the puddle where when my face hit the puddle, I'd have to grab it with my lips, and I could breathe under this one.
Wow.
And he was just beating me like that. And so it worked great. We did it in one take and it worked great, or effing great. And right when he said cut, Bob walked over to, this is the thing about collaboration that I love the best. He walked over to the puddle and I looked up at him and I said, did that work? He goes, yes, it worked, Vincent. And from now on, it will be my idea.
And now you've
I
set the record straight today.
It was like totally like part of what we do on an everyday basis. In the end, it really doesn't matter. It's just the idea that works is what's best, and we all should be taking credit for it equally, because without the collaboration, there would have been no idea.
For even more on Daredevil Born Again, be sure to check out the rest of our chat with the stars and directors, where they discuss blowing up the show's Netflix past. And if you need a refresher on old Hornhead's adventures, give our recap a watch. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe to IGN wherever you watch.